The soft clink of champagne glasses rang out like the background music of a lavish dream world. Camera flashes flickered constantly from diamond-encrusted iPhones, reflecting off the marble floor polished to a mirror shine. The scent of Clive Christian No. 1 mingled with the sharp tang of freshly dried automotive paint, creating the aroma of power sweet, expensive, and suffocating. At the center of attention stood the Crossfire Legacy, a silver-plated supercar with lines sharp as blades rotating slowly on a spotlighted platform in the middle of the ballroom. Damian Cross stood nearby clad in a bespoke Tom Ford suit, his Windsor knot tie perfectly symmetrical, a glass of 1982 Petrus wine in hand. A nearly invisible Bluetooth earpiece nestled in his right ear. No. Sell off all the shares, tank the stock, then buy it back. Let him learn what it means to play with sharks, Damian murmured, cold and precise as if reciting a formula. Somewhere on the other end of that call, someone's life's work was likely turning to ashes. Not far away, Lena Reyes moved slowly through the hall, pushing a serving cart. Her fitted black uniform did little to conceal her athletic frame, her sharp gaze veiled beneath long, curled lashes. A small oil stain on her sleeve betrayed the garage she had just left before taking this extra night shift. Lena wasn't looking at anyone, nor was she avoiding the lights. Her eyes were fixed on the car. No on the rear left tire. One step, then another. She stepped past the security boundary, bent down, and gently touched the tire with her fingertips. Her eyes squinted slightly, measuring the offset by instinct. And just then, Damian's voice sliced through the air. "Are you blind? Or just stupid?" The entire ballroom fell silent. Damian approached, eyes razor-sharp. "Get your greasy little hands off my father's legacy. You think you can touch this, You don't even belong in the same room." A murmur of laughter rippled through the guests. A man in a tuxedo blurted, "She's the help. Probably doesn't know a spark plug from a corkscrew." Lena stood up straight. Not angry, not afraid, she simply looked Damian in the eye and said in an even voice, "I was checking the misalignment on the rear left axle. At speeds over 150 miles per hour, it'll break." She stepped back, adjusted her oil-stained sleeve. "But I'm sure you already knew that, didn't you?" Just then, Damian's assistant came rushing over, pale-faced. "Mr. Cross, the remote diagnostic system just issued a warning. Rear left axle fault. The expert says there's only one person in New York skilled enough to fix it within 24 hours. They call her the Ghost." The air turned to ice. Damian whipped his head toward Lena. The contempt in his eyes a moment ago now flooded with suspicion. She stepped closer, tilted her head slightly, and whispered, "They call me Lena, and you just insulted the only person who can save your father's legacy." Damian's face went ghost white. The spotlight reflected off his forehead like a band of cold steel. And just like that, the ballroom gala fell into dead silence. The specialized elevator let out a soft hiss as it opened onto the top floor of the Cross Tower. Before Lena was a space unlike anything she had ever seen, white gleaming so cold it felt sterile. The glass wall looked out over Manhattan at night, the city lights below glittering like an intricate circuit board. But inside this room, everything was silent and precise, like an open-heart surgery in progress. At the center stood a stainless steel car lift, cradling the Crossfire Legacy, now resembling a machine beast awaiting dissection. The right wall was lined with auto repair tools, perfectly symmetrical, each wrench and socket laser-etched with a serial number. No family photos. Not a speck of dust. Only metal glass and icy blue-white LED lights. Lena thought to herself, "This isn't a garage. This is a temple, and he's the high priest." Damien stood nearby, his suit gone now, wearing a fitted black t-shirt with arms crossed. For the first time, he looked almost human. But his eyes remained the same, tense and cold. "That car is the last promise I made to my father," he said bluntly. "He never believed I could do anything but destroy. I want to prove him wrong." Lena walked around the car without looking at him. "Seems like you're destroying a few other things while you're at it," she replied evenly. Damien frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Lena didn't answer. She was connecting her device to the car's diagnostic system. A screen nearby lit up with technical data, but then a small window popped open, an unsent email. Lena only glanced, but it was enough to read the subject line. "Cross Capital approves eviction order Block 84 Bronx redevelopment project. Subject final seizure timeline confirmed. Reyes and Son garage included." No one said a word. Damien didn't realize she had seen it. But Lena stood still, her hand subtly tightening around the pen in her chest pocket. Her eyes never left the screen as she spoke quietly. "You came to me to save your legacy, while you're preparing to burn mine to the ground." Damien stepped closer, his voice lower now. "I didn't know. It doesn't matter." Lena cut him off. She turned to face him. "I'll fix the car, but on one condition." Damien narrowed his eyes. "Money's not a problem. It's not about money." Lena lifted her chin. Her voice was firm as a steel bolt. "For the next 12 hours, I'm in charge here. You follow every instruction I give. No pushback, no comments. And after that, we talk about the Bronx." Damien paused for a few seconds, then nodded slowly. "Deal." Lena pulled on her gloves, moving toward the back of the car. "I need to know what your old man was thinking when he designed this, and the only way to understand that is to understand the son he left behind." She glanced at Damien. "So you're not going anywhere." And just like that, in a room as cold as metal awaiting emergency surgery, two people, one legacy mechanic, one shark king, began a procedure not on an engine but on something far deeper. The diagnostic machine let out steady, soft beeping as Lena leaned in to check the spark plug, had her left hand tapping gently on the car's body like she was listening to its heartbeat. Damien sat awkwardly on a tall stool wrist, still smudged with oil, face drawn tight like a schoolboy being punished. His expensive suit had long been hung neatly on the rack, replaced by a black t-shirt and brand new jeans his assistant had brought, still stiff, untouched by dust. But that was no longer the case. "Hand me the 12mm wrench," Lena said, without looking up. Damien fumbled through the tool tray, took 3 seconds to distinguish between a 10 and a 12, then held out the correct one. Lena didn't smirk, didn't mock him. She just gave a slight nod and went back to tightening a bolt beneath the car. "Do you know why the rear axle's misaligned?" she asked, her voice low and even. "It's not a design flaw. Someone tried to optimize it without understanding the original intent." Damien stayed quiet. Then softly he said, "My father used to say, every adjustment has its cost." But I never stuck around long enough to hear the second half. "Why not?" Lena asked. Damien slid down to the floor, leaning back against the glass wall. He stared into the distance, then let out a weary, bitter smile. "Because I was always late. Late to dinner. Late to birthdays. Late even when he was on his deathbed," he said. He hated the financial markets, called it a bazaar of greed. What he trusted was metal movement things that made sense if you were willing to listen. Lena sat down across from him, resting her elbows on her knees. "What did he leave you?" she asked. Damien chuckled faintly. "This car." And an unfinished sentence. A brief silence passed between them. Lena exhaled. My father left nothing but a garage and a warning. You'll be judged by your looks, your gender, your voice. But don't ever let anyone judge you by their own ignorance. She looked at Damien. I had to fix 25 cars just to prove I wasn't some girl playing with wrenches for fun. And on the 26th, I finally allowed myself to say I was an engineer. Damien nodded, thoughtful. I wrecked 25 companies to be called a financial genius. And by the 26th, I started to wonder, what exactly did I just kill? A quiet flicker lit up in Lena's eyes. Maybe we're both byproducts of men who tried to build something eternal, she said. The only difference is, I learned to listen to engines. You listen to markets scream. Damien laughed. And that screaming is killing me one day at a time. The car wasn't fixed yet, but in that moment, beneath the cold, white-blue lights of the cathedral of steel, something began to fracture. Not the chassis, but the armor around Damien Cross's heart. Dawn had not fully broken, but soft gray light had already begun to seep through the glass wall, casting a muted hue across the cathedral of steel. Lena was running a final check on the tire pressure sensors, while Damien stood beside her flashlight, steady in his hand, no longer a boss, but a collaborator. No words were exchanged, yet something unspoken was taking form between them, a quiet synchronization. The elevator chimed crisply. Two silhouettes entered slim-suited leather shoes polished to a mirror gleam. One of them laughed aloud at the sight of Damien crouched wiping oil from a wheel rim. Jesus Cross. When did you become a damn mechanic? Damien straightened up, a flicker of discomfort on his face. Bryce. Tyler. You're early. The Gulfstream deal needs final signatures in under an hour, Bryce said, waving a folder. But more importantly, are you planning to become an engineer now, or are you still a shark? Tyler scanned the room, his gaze landing on Lena. His eyes didn't see a person, just an object to be classified. Who's this new girlfriend or a grease monkey with a taste for torque? Damien opened his mouth to respond, but stopped. Lena didn't turn around. She kept working as if she hadn't heard a thing, but the room had shifted. The air now carried a metallic edge, sharp and bitter. Bryce pulled Damien aside and muttered just loud enough for Lena to hear. You're going soft, Damien. You think your dead father would be proud to see you cozying up to a mechanic instead of running Wall Street. Don't forget who made you. It was your killer instinct, not your socket wrench skills. Then came the knife. She's not one of us, and she never will be. Damien looked at Bryce, then at Tyler. And finally, he turned toward Lena, still bent over the engine controls, the warm yellow light catching beads of sweat on her cheek. What he felt in that moment wasn't certainty. It was doubt. And then fear. Lena, he said, his voice hard and metallic. You did excellent work. Send the invoice to my assistant. I need this space alone now. Lena rose, slowly peeling off her gloves. She said nothing, but the look she gave him was like a saw blade slicing straight through cold steel. Use the main exit. Staff will escort you down, he added, not a flicker of emotion on his face. Bryce smiled, clapping Damien on the shoulder. There we go, brother. You're still in there. Welcome back. The door clicked shut behind Lena with a soft snick like a needle dropping. But to Damien, it sounded like the lock on a prison cell. He didn't know what he had just killed. But this time, it wasn't a company. The glass doors at the base of Cross Tower shut behind Lena with a chill that echoed like a sentence passed. She walked slowly through the marble lobby, gripping her toolbox tightly, heels striking the stone floor in a rhythm that was both solitary and unyielding. No tears. No glance back. The elevator ride down took less than 60 seconds, but to Lena it stretched like an entire lifetime thrown back into the dark. When the doors slid open, and she stepped into the early morning light. The sun lit her face, revealing something no one in the cathedral of steel had seen. Not brokenness, but fire. Inside, Damien was still standing. Bryce and Tyler were huddled over a stack of documents, sneering as they discussed the Gulfstream deal like nothing had just happened. Damien looked at them and felt an unfamiliar wave of nausea. Every grin on their faces now looked like cheap rubber masks, barely hiding steel jaws. "She was good," Tyler said flatly. "But if you can't keep your emotions in check, this whole thing's gonna burn." Damien didn't respond. He looked down at his hand, still marked by a faint smear of oil on his thumb. Just hours ago, this hand had caught a wrench Lena tossed without looking. Now it held the only evidence of something real, something already slipping away. "Are you even listening?" Bryce snapped. "We need your signature in 3 minutes." Damien looked up. In that moment, his eyes carried no arrogance, no frost, only clarity. He walked to the table and picked up the folder, but instead of signing, he tore each page in half firmly without blinking. Bryce's mouth dropped open. Tyler stepped back. "Get out," Damien said. Not a shout, just a command sharp and solid like the sound of steel hitting concrete. What the I said, "Get out of my house. Get out of my life. And if either of you touches 1 more inch of land in the Bronx, I'll bring this entire financial system down on your heads." Understood. The two sharks froze, then silently retreated, lost for the first time in the very game they'd mastered. Damien didn't wait for them to reach the elevator. He rushed to the Crossfire Legacy engine, still unfinished, still warm. He climbed into the driver's seat, reattached the control panel Lena had just calibrated. His hands trembled slightly as he turned the ignition. The car roared awake, then revved like a beast jolted from slumber. No chauffeur, no assistant. Damien tore through the foggy streets of Wall Street, heading straight for the Bronx, not to win Lena back, but to reclaim the part of himself he had buried beneath years of money and fear. Bronx rain didn't fall like it did in Manhattan. It wasn't elegant or gentle. It came down in torrents, violent and raw, as if the sky was unloading all its rage onto every dented tin roof and cracked slab of cement below. The Reyes and Son garage stood like an aging warrior, still upright in the storm. Its brick walls were stained, its rolling door bent out of shape, and the hand-painted sign had long since faded the word "Son." But the warm yellow light spilling from inside glowed brighter than any chandelier at the gala. Damien slammed the brakes just outside. He stepped out without an umbrella. Rain hammered his shoulders, slid down his spine, icy and sharp. On the roof, Lena was laying a large silver tarp over a section torn by the storm. Her hands were smeared with grime soaked to the bone. Her small shoulders didn't shake. When Damien looked up, the sight this lone woman bracing against the rain to protect a crumbling roof punched straight through his chest. He didn't call out, didn't yell. He climbed onto the roof, each step slipping on the wet boards, but no one stopped him. "You don't have to do this alone," he said, voice hoarse from the rain and something deeper. "Lena didn't turn, but I'm still doing it, aren't I?" Damien stood 3 steps away. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Every line he had prepared dissolved in the downpour. "Lena, I was wrong. I don't." She cut him off, voice low but sharp as a blade. "I don't need to hear the speech you practiced to save your conscience." He bowed his head and drew a deep breath. And then, without another word, he pulled out his phone and dialed. "Draft the ownership transfer, now," he said. "Block 84, Bronx, terminate all eviction proceedings. Note, transfer full property rights to Lena Reyes. Unconditional." The voice on the other end protested. Damien growled, "Do it, or resign." He hung up. The rain kept falling. No applause, no music swell, just water dripping from his hair onto the moss-covered roof. Lena turned to face him for the first time since the night before. In her eyes were both fury and something softer she tried to hide. Why, she asked. Because that was your father's legacy, and I have no right to destroy it, just because I'm afraid, Damien answered, voice steady and low. You were right. I can't buy back your time. But if you give me a chance not to earn forgiveness, but to do what's right, I won't waste it. They stood there in the storm like two fractures in the same sheet of metal, once bent by pressure, now bracing to not break. Lena didn't say I forgive you, and Damien didn't expect her to. But when she quietly stepped beside him and helped pull the tarp tighter without a single word, that was the only answer he needed. Inside the Reyes & Son garage, there were no stage lights tonight. No champagne, no applause. Only the thud of a rubber mallet, the soft scraping of sandpaper against silver metal, and the rhythmic tapping of Lena's fingers on a circuit board. Damien sat across from her, on the other side of the Crossfire Legacy sleeves, rolled up arms smudged with soot and a thin layer of paint. No one was giving orders. No one was backing down. But for the first time, they were working as equals. The processor won't reconnect, Lena muttered. Damien glanced at the 3D schematic glowing on the screen. If we reroute the reverse current force, the signal to loop, it might bypass the fried chip. Lena squinted at him. That's some Wall Street thinking. He shrugged. We call it financial creativity. She didn't laugh, but nodded. All right, try it. The car clicked once, then the system lit up. The screen flickered blue like a heartbeat restarting after surgery. Neither of them cheered, but their eyes met for a breath, sharing one silent thought. We did it. But the moment didn't last. Damien's phone rang. His assistant's voice trembled. Bryce and Tyler filed a formal complaint with the race committee. They're claiming your car doesn't meet technical regulations and that you're using leaked designs from a competitor. Lena clenched her jaw. That's a dirty move. Doesn't matter, Damien replied firmly. We pushed back. They stayed up all night reviewing every detail. Lena printed circuit maps, Damien drafted rebuttals, digging through his father's old design logs. No more engineer and CEO. Just two people fighting side by side, not for a trophy, but for their honor. At dawn, the Crossfire Legacy rolled onto the track. Damien sat behind the wheel earpiece connected directly to Lena, the only person he trusted now. Keep the revs under 7,000 on the turns, she said in his ear. How am I supposed to win if I don't roar a little? You don't need to win. Lena replied. You just need to finish, like your father did. The race began. The track lit up under the early sun. Damien no longer heard the crowd. In his head was his father's voice, don't control it. Listen to it. And in his ear, Lena's calm, steady instructions, hold left, cut right, trust me. He crossed the finish line in third place, not first. But when he stepped out of the car, pulled off his helmet, and saw Lena standing at the pit lane, not waving, not cheering, just looking at him with eyes that shimmered, Damien knew. He had won. Not against the competition, but against the man he used to be. 6 months later. The Bronx. There were no more roaring engines or applause from grandstands. Now the loudest sound was the laughter of teenagers, one gripping a wrench. Another crouched over a circuit diagram like it was a puzzle game. On the freshly painted brick wall of the old garage hung a large sign, Reyes Cross Legacy Works, simple hand-painted lettering, with a small slogan beneath, We don't fix cars. We build futures. Inside, Damien Cross, no suit, no Rolex, was kneeling beside a 14-year-old girl, carefully showing her how to install a rear axle. His hands were covered in grease. His forehead was dotted with sweat. But his eyes, those eyes, burned bright like he had finally found the place where he belonged. At another bench, Lena was teaching two boys how to weld a chassis. When a spark hit one boy's hand and made him flinch, she tapped his helmet gently, smiling. A little burn is worth it if you want to call yourself a mechanic. Damien looked over and met her eyes. No grand declaration. No cinematic kiss. She just tossed him a grease rag. He caught it, his hand brushing hers, a touch smeared with oil, yet powerful enough to shake the coldest walls he'd ever built around his heart. The original Crossfire legacy no longer sat on a rotating display. Now it rested in the corner of the room, its body repainted, adorned with hand-drawn art by the students. On the hood were two prints, one large calloused hand, Lena's father's, and a smaller delicate one, perhaps, from any kid who ever thought they'd never get the chance to touch a dream. In the small office at the back, the blueprint for the first nationwide youth technical training center was spread across a table bearing the logo RCLW in the center. The project had been approved, funded by a foundation named the Father's Blueprint. Lena stood beside Damien, both gazing down at the design. She whispered, "This is the real victory, isn't it?" Damien smiled. "Not taking over the world, just building a place in it where we don't have to wear masks." They didn't need to say, "I love you," because they had lived it through every bolt, every bead of sweat, every quiet moment of rebuilding. The finish line in the end wasn't the racetrack. It was a place they could finally call home. And together, they crossed it. If you believe that everyone, no matter where they come from, deserves the chance to build something great, leave a comment and share your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss more powerful and emotional stories from Toch Story, where lost hearts find each other through dreams of machines, paths of redemption, and the moments that change lives forever. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the finish line.